Bachelor season 28. This was the first season that did not have Mike Fleiss in earnest of Bachelor. Do you think that it was different in any way? And what did you just think generally of Bachelor season 28, Joey's season?
I don't know if you guys have the same problem I do, but it's hard. It's almost like I'm staring too close to the artwork to see the beautiful picture. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's like you ever look at a Monet too close and you're like, ugh. Like I'll tell you what I really like, that the Golden Bachelor brought out the cold open,
Yeah.
which
Hmm.
Joe has been doing, like, coming up this season, blah, 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 blah. And then it's just loud noise. But now they're doing these quiet
Yeah,
moments of
spoilers.
spoilers and some silent crying and things like.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like they might be trying to do a type of storytelling that's maybe more chicken soup for the soul than it is just trash TV. Maybe they're realizing that while it might not be the most shocking thing to fabricate a storyline early on,
Mm-hmm.
if you do tell a good story, you will get more people talking about it, it seems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, season 28 also the narrative they built was that he fell in love with two women who both fell in love with him, and they weren't bitter rivals and they weren't going on two-on-ones with each other. They both were friends. And so the end of this season was really about two friends accepting that they both fell in love with the same guy, but he's only in love with one of them. And the friend who is on the outside of that saying, "Hey, I get it, and I wish you nothing but the best." There was
Hmm.
no toxicity in the final, which usually isn't the way it happens. Usually, whoever gets dismissed in the final is the big victim, and that leads to the bachelorettedom. But she either has some kind of like horrible breakdown or a fuck you for leading me on kind of moment. And that just wasn't really in this season. And it worked. Like, I hope what they learned from it was that you can build this very sincere love story and make the final really about the choice that has to be made, not about how bad somebody's fucking each other over. I mean, like, look at Clayton Echard's season, the rose ceremony from hell. They built him into just unmitigated disaster. Everyone hated him at the end of that season. Susie Evans rejected the final rose, you know? It was like, they're not doing that anymore.
By the way,
Poor
just
Clayton.
some tea from Clayton's season. So I had him. I did a show in Scottsdale a few weeks ago, or in March 28th last month, and I had
Find
Clayton.
that country.
Yeah, I had Clayton on to do a Q&A, and I said, like, someone asked a question about, like, them making him look bad, and he actually said that it was worse and they toned it down, which I thought was.
Holy shit.
He was like, honestly, like, they actually helped me a little bit. It was actually worse. So I guess we'll never see that footage.
Oh
But
my
Whoa.
God.
but what's interesting with Joey is, I think Joey's a kind of a bad actor in the, like, due to his own kind heart. He couldn't sell to Daisy that he was still interested in her too.
Mhm.
Versus
Hmm.
Zach's season, you had Gabby and Katie. They did the friendship thing, but Gabby was so sort of crossed by the fact that he outed that they were together in the fantasy suite. So
Mhm.
it almost looks like the difference was, it was almost like you could see it evolving to this type of ending, but it required Joey to be better at making it obvious who his choice was.
But it's also, yes, I think Joey was very good at it, like definitely putting in some subtle language to let each one of them know, which way he was leaning. But that's also the producers. When the producers have a narrative that they have written for the end of the season, that's what's happening. And if you're not playing that game with them, they are going to make your life a living hell or eliminate you or whatever. I would wager that with Zach Shawcross's season, they were like, we're going to make him do the Sean Lowe, I'm not having sex with anybody, but oh, he's going to have sex with one person, and that's going to be the big dramatic thing that pisses somebody off. They allowed Joey to essentially just
They
walk into
protected
that
him.
finale. Yeah, they protected him in the edit and I think in the production of the season, as well as the two finalists. They protected Daisy, they protected Kelsey Anderson,
I
I
Yeah.
also
think.
do think he is a good actor because I feel like he was able to be super present with each person who was on the season when they're telling him their sad stories. He seems extremely empathetic and caring and interested.
Oh yeah, and you know what? It might be more of a credit to Daisy's intuition for reading it and just knowing she was like, I'm just not the one. Which,
Yeah.
everyone has those doubts, but then you kind of talk yourself out of those doubts and you go, well, I'm just going crazy. Like, Daisy didn't believe that she was the one, and like, very obviously knew it
Hmm.
wasn't her. And again, with the previous season, with Zach's season, Gabby, I mean, it just goes to show, like, she made some comments when she was watching it, being like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like, Gabby didn't get the red carpet treatment. She was truthfully, like, it's one thing to take the high road, but like, she was truthfully violated. And Zach and Katie look like a good happy couple, but like Gabby got the brunt of that season and
Yeah.
didn't get paradise or a bunch of followers or any of those things really. And at least
Yeah.
Daisy got a real.
And she got that silent fantasy suite date where they took the sound out.
But also with Daisy, like, yes, she recognized it, but then what has to happen in order for that season to be produced as it was is she has to go to the producers and be like, look, I know it's not me. I want to do this where I go talk to Kelsey and we can be friends in the end. And the producers have to be like, yeah, okay, let's do that. Because otherwise the producers are like, oh, we totally get it, but we need you to walk out there and have him dump you at the final altar.
This will be
They
good for
didn't
your
do that.
Bachelorette edit.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right that they have to provide the framework for that scene to happen. A lot of times people think, oh, I'll just go rogue and do my own thing. It's like, well, fat chance that makes it into the edit. Like, you can't just, it's like when someone's on taped TV, you can't just say what you want to say. It's just not going to make it. You got to kind of thread it in. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what goes on in the storyboarding, but there has to be a moment there where they've got a day or two to figure it out. The producers, where they go, all right, well, man, can we make this the story? And I mean, do you think that that's an option they have beforehand and they finally played it like a trick play that they finally made? Or do you think they called it on the spot?
I think that this is just my own take from the seasons that have been produced, especially the bubble seasons during COVID and all of that. I think during those seasons, the producers were in probably like the most controlling mode they've ever been. I think they had literal stories written for people from casting. And they were like, this is what's going to happen with that person. And when the person came in and was like, I'm not saying that in an ITM, I'm not doing that. Bye-bye. You're gone night one. You're gone week one, whatever. I think
they
in
gave
season
people
28,
scripts at the Women Tell All.
I think that still happens to some degree, but yes, they gave like written documents to some people at the tell-alls during those bubble seasons, and they said, read this exactly as we've written it, and you'll get paradise, and then you don't get paradise, even if you do read it. But I think those days are kind of gone now, or at least in season 28, I felt something very different, and I think it is exactly what you're saying, producing on the fly, allowing an organic situation to come about, and then saying to themselves, how do we make the best version of this thing that's happening organically, not how do we force this thing that's happening organically into the pre-written script we already have, especially if it's contradictory to that.
And I'm sure you have producers watching this, but it's, audiences have gotten smarter, and it's like I got a show tonight. I'm going to go put together my set list of what I want to say on stage. But if somebody spills their beer when I walk on stage and I don't address it, the whole room is going to be like, why isn't the comic talking about the beer that was just spilled? Like, you have to evolve to what's actually happening. So yeah, you can have your script or you can have your playbook, but you got to have those tricks up your sleeve, or just, or like be there in the moment and go, huh, this is really interesting. This thing's going on. Like, what if we water this and talk about this? And audiences, like producers and storyboard editors, they're just not as smart as what real life brings. And by real life,
Absolutely.
I mean, this is sort of a controlled environment, but the players are still going to have their own mind and free will. And if you can get them to do things that weren't part of,
cast big characters, that's why they cast them. I just think they have been, and they need to trust the premise of the show. There's inherently drama in many people dating the same person.
Yeah. When they came in with Kelsey's the card she left on his door that was like, we need to talk, it was just like, it just reeked of like, the producers are like, well, we need to have a twist. We need something to cliffhang on. Get her in there. Send her in with a card that makes him think everything's going to end. Ha ha ha. And it was like, no, don't do that. It screams to anybody who has watched the show for any amount of time that producers are interfering for literally no reason. And it's these moments like that are like super pro wrestling, where you're like, okay, come on. That's a no-sell, as they call it in pro wrestling, in my opinion. It's like,
and you're having...
she no-sold you on that one, dude.
You're also having Kelsey come afterwards and make a TikTok, me purposely writing a super vague note to Joey, and the producers there, like, being like, of course, it wasn't my idea to have this just be the sentence.
Yeah, it's like a corporate Applebee's menu. It's like, they're just, it's so, you know, you can just hear 10 people in the room being like, but we need more. And you're just
Yeah.
like, they're, you know, this is why like a good script comes from, you know, not 50 people workshopping something, but like a real like bold
Yes.
idea. And that's why a lot of times like good reality TV comes from like a fringe cable network who just wants to try something new. But Bachelor is safe. This works. We need a hook to get the grandmas to talk about this in you know, in their knitting session before, you know, the finale. And it's like, I don't know, maybe we're evolving and maybe they learned that audiences are like, okay, I mean, how many times can we do the, I need to talk to you or the 2-on-1 date or whatever?